Does character still matter? Well, it does tonight. It does tonight. The kid with the stutter did good. He did good. That's a good man. He fell on the sword. He fell on the sword. Most heroes, they fight to the bitter end. He fell on this sword. He's an old guy, but the heart's still there. You know, the words aren't as clear, but the love is as clear. The heart is still there. And I think people need to look at this, because you had somebody sitting in that chair and he wouldn't give up power no matter what. Wouldn't give up power, let there be an insurrection, wouldn't get out of that chair. Even when the people voted for you to get out the chair, he wouldn't get out the chair. And you've got somebody who's sitting in that same chair, showing that character does matter, showing that you can have grace, you can put the people first, you can pass the baton, and you're a bigger person for it. You're gonna be more loved for it. So you've got two examples now of what men with power do and how they act at the end. And you couldn't act any better than Joe Biden. That kid with the stutter grew up. He did a great job for this country, and he's doing a great job tonight. And I love that man.
That is, of course, Van Jones responding to Joe Biden giving his much-awaited address to the nation, explaining why it is that he decided not to seek re-election, instead endorsing Kamala Harris, who, of course, is now the presumptive nominee. And as you can see from that, as you can hear from Van Jones' voice, he is not physically capable of having loved that speech more than he did. And I am of two minds. I'm playing the clip because, while I disagree with Van Jones in some cases, I like that he gives like a raw reaction to what he's hearing, and he seems super authentic there. At the same time, he sounds like me talking about how touched I was that Captain America stood up to Thanos alone as the armies of the aliens were sitting against him. And he's an old guy, but he's still got heart. And he didn't put down Thor's hammer. So it's like, it's a little bit over the top, but that's his brand. And I do think you can go too far in lionizing Joe Biden. He, at the end of the day, decided not to pursue what almost certainly would have been a disastrous, unsuccessful second bid for the presidency. And choosing not to do that, on one level, merely requires that you see the polling and you see where this thing is heading. At the same time, though, you can also be too hard on Joe Biden. And I do think it is a very hard thing to do and a very rare thing to do for any politician to willingly give up even a chance for power. And he did do that. And so basically everything that Van Jones said there is true, at least on a level. And so I'm gonna give you just a little bit of what Biden had to say, and then we're gonna discuss. Here is his address from last night.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. And we can never forget that. And I never have. And I know this. We are a great nation because we are good people.
I liked his address. I particularly liked that last line. That's why we kept that in there. I don't know that I always necessarily agree that we are collectively good people. I think that we aspire to be. We're still, narrowly coming out of the pandemic, in which a significant percentage of our country revealed that they are not when they need to be. But I do like it. And I like that Joe really does seem to believe that. And again, hard address to give. It was at the same time, and Yaz, I'll bring you in on this, it was a reminder of why he's stepping down, because even inside of that address, which of course was delivered via teleprompter, and it was only, I think, about 10, 12 minutes long, he did have a couple of little stumbles and the overall energy was low. So it was simultaneously a great moment, I think a great explanation of why he's not pursuing the presidency, but can still serve as president for the remainder of his term, about 1 year. And also a reminder of why he really did need to step down. So what did you think about it?
Yeah, I think the overall tone was very somber, maybe. I think it's appropriate too, because this is a man who has been in our United States government for decades, right? I don't remember when he first went in, but he's been serving in our government in some capacity for a long, long time. And so you get to the end of his political career where he's 80 years old now, and he's sitting there saying, I'm not going to run anymore because of all these reasons that I have for not running. And it is a big deal to see someone who has been such an institution in our government, all the way up to the presidency, say, it's time for me to step back. And yes, in politics, there's so much ego there that you don't even expect something like this from the people who are our elected officials, right? You have to be a little bit crazy to even want to be president in the first place, to even pursue that path for yourself. You have to have a giant ego. You have to have some bit of, I don't know if it's arrogance or just confidence in yourself, but it has to be to like an unfathomable degree to say that's the biggest, highest, hardest job in the entire world, and I want it, and I'm going to be capable of doing that. So for him to have come that far and then to step back and say it's not me anymore, that is big of him. I'm glad he did it. Perhaps it could have happened a lot sooner, but here is where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it certainly could have happened earlier. I think that there's an interesting debate to be had about whether it would have been better had it happened earlier. Is it not in some ways better to have gotten past the RNC? And later in the show, we'll get to the sort of the polling coming out of the RNC and the attempted assassination and everything. And this seems to be working out for the Democrats in some ways. Obviously, back during what was allowed to pass for a Democratic primary, I was week by week calling for an actual primary. And I will just briefly say, there will be a couple times during the show in which I am going to be selfish perhaps in the way I talk. So I apologize for that, but I've been through a lot. I listen to The Daily. I like The Daily. It's a podcast, and I think it stands in for a lot of the sort of like status quo media discussion of a lot of what's going on. And in the wake of him stepping down, in the wake of Harris being coronated, there was a lot of discussion in a couple episodes of it of how neither the Democratic Party, the Democratic elites, or the media allowed there to be a Democratic primary. And I like the podcast, but I would like to just say what I've said several times. They never covered the primary on it, okay? They were a part of that. And so there's just, I've noticed there's a lot of people coming out of this difficult discussion and the fears of chaos to now things are looking pretty good. And now everybody was saying the right thing back when it was difficult, but that's not the way that it actually went at all. Maybe my brain is melted from the COVID or whatever, but I remember getting attacked quite a bit for calling for Joe Biden to step down. And now a lot of the people who were furious about that are now justifiably very excited about the path of the race right now. And the regular people that's true of, I'm not gonna get down on them or whatever, they were worried about the chaos or whatever. But for the media figures who were demonizing everyone who was just saying what it was that was going on with Biden, that now all of a sudden, they were always in the right in that. And it was other people that couldn't identify that which was true. I'm just gonna say that seems ridiculous to me. And we're now moving to a new phase, and I'm super excited, and I'm feeling optimism, and the rest of the show is gonna be all about that. I'm just gonna briefly put a pin in the fact that there's a lot of people trying to rewrite their own personal history in this. But anyway, aside from that, I'm just gonna read you a couple more quotes from Joe Biden, and then Yaz, if you have other thoughts, I wanna hear them. He argued that his record as president merited a second term. It's something he's been saying throughout this, but nothing could come in the way of saving our democracy, and I do agree with that. He says there's a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. That time and place is now. He praised Harris, said she's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. And then he closed by saying the great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands, the power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. And I don't know what happens if Donald Trump wins. I don't know what is left of elections in 4 years. I know some people immediately jump to, we don't have any elections anymore. I've been saying for some time that is not the scariest outcome. The scariest outcome is we have elections, but they're utterly pointless because of what's been done in the intervening 4 years. Hopefully that now will not happen because we have a shot. We have an actual chance thanks to Joe Biden being willing to take stock and bow to the pressure and step down. It was a great thing that he did. Harris has now rallied enough support that it almost certainly looks like she's gonna be the candidate. I think there is good reason to be very excited about that. So turning back to optimism, any other thoughts? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was one of the people who I really did not see Joe Biden stepping down. And we were talking about this before the show. It's not that I didn't want him to step down. I just did not see it actually happening, right? This is the era of unprecedented times, though. So anything goes. But, I really just didn't think that the Democrats would be so bold as to make that big move. This is unlike anything we've ever seen in our lifetimes, at least. So this is big. And I have to admit that when it did happen on Sunday, I kind of had to sit with myself and see how I felt about it, right? There's a lot of uncertainty whenever things like this happen. Things inevitably get thrown into a little bit of chaos, but you have to at least trust a little bit that the Democrats who were behind this decision, but Biden didn't come to this on his own, we know that, but the Democrats who were behind this, we have to at least believe that they had some kind of backup plan and that they were ready to go forward with it and move on to whatever they had to do. I like that they waited until after the RNC because the Republicans were able to direct all of their ire directly at Joe Biden, and then he just soaked it all up and then tossed it away and then made way for Kamala Harris. Maybe it was sneaky or maybe it was strategic. It's all a matter of perspective. I think that there's still a lot of apprehension amongst the Democrats over all of this. There is absolutely, though, a lot of new energy within the Democratic Party amongst the Democratic elites in Congress or wherever, and also amongst voting Democrats that we haven't seen in a while, maybe not since Obama first ran in 2008. I remember that time. I got to say, this feels comparable. It's not a direct comparison, but it does feel similar. And Obama, he ran a campaign on hope, right? And that is a word that and a feeling that Democrats now have been cautiously embracing over the past year, very cautiously, like, oh, is it okay to hope now? Is it okay to feel excited about this election? Because up until now, that was really missing, and that was a problem.
I 100% agree. And I will remind everyone what we said the morning after I think it was June 27th debate. We came on the show and said, yes, that debate was a disaster, but that means there is a chance. There's a chance for something better. There is reason to be excited. There's reason to be optimistic. And it didn't happen fast. And by the way, I want to give myself credit for that. I also didn't accurately predict every step of the way that it would happen. Similar to what Yaz was saying, I had periods where I thought it was very likely, and then I also had an extended period where I had given up hope. So don't go to me on a day-to-day basis in making the predictions, but I think that I was right when I said this can lead to better things, and we're now in those better things, as we'll get to a little bit later on the show. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.